And with this group here, we have represented 42 years of the 50-year history of the college. So, we're just going to kind of have a conversation, and if you want to continue the conversation after we're done, feel free to do that. Some of you just came in. I know you want to spend some time with the presidents. So, we're going to start with the ladies, since we have a lady here.
Sometimes that's to my benefit.
During your tenure here, what accomplishment or event or whatever stands out in your mind?
Well, there are a number, but I think the main thing in terms of the time that I was here was the consolidation. I used to say that I learned 2 new 4-letter words when I came to Maysville. SACS, S-A-C-S, which is of course our accrediting agency, and mold. So, in terms of the accomplishments, certainly working through the consolidation and bringing the 2 colleges together with 2 very different cultures. It was an incredible experience, an incredible opportunity to create a new college out of 2 just really superb institutions who had served their communities well. And so I would have to say that's probably the signature accomplishment during my time at MCTC.
Dr. Shires, you were president for 27 years, weren't you?
Well, I was here 27 years, and yes. I was gone a couple of times with the U.S. Army, and so I served 25 years here. And when I came, the CEOs of the community colleges were called directors.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Charles Wethington, who was the first person here, he was a director. He never got to be president here, but he got to be president of the University of Kentucky.
That's right. They did make you president. Where? They did make you president before it was over.
Yes, we got finally designated presidents at some point. So I considered myself in the first president of Maysville Community College.
What about some accomplishments that stand out in your mind during your tenure?
As I thought about it after I got this list and had to think about it and try to remember things, I think during my time here, one big thing that was accomplished was our offering classes and programs off campus and establishing the branch campus at Cynthiana and working more closely with and developing programs along with the regional universities.
Yes, sir.
Of course, we were part of the University of Kentucky when I came. And so we developed working relationships and programs with Morehead State University, Northern Kentucky University, and some others. Those were the 2 primary ones that we worked with. And our development here was slow for several reasons. Number one, this region, the 5-county Buffalo Trace region, had, and probably still has, the lowest population of any of the areas where community colleges were located. So we already had a built-in problem with that in terms of enrollment. We didn't have as many people, students and non-students, adults, to enroll. So that was a problem that we had to work with, but we worked with it all the time and did a lot of outreach to bring in as many folks as we could. And that began to slowly, but began to build up, you'll recall.
Sure.
And part of the reason was going off campus to offer programs and courses. So to me, those were the main accomplishments early on, especially as I came here.
Dr. Story, what do you remember as your accomplishment that sticks out in your mind?
Well, following these 2 great leaders, one thing.
There you go.
And mentors. Building new campuses, and new buildings. We started maybe with Dr. Julian, the science building out here in the back, and then we built the nursing addition at, in Cynthiana. And then, of course, Mount Sterling just blew up. And we had students over there and people wanting classes and what have you. And then I was fortunate to be able to help start the new building at Round. I had some of the more pleasant things to get out and try to find money and that kind of thing to help fund that building, because somehow the legislature did not provide us all they said they were going to. And so all of a sudden I had millions to raise. And so we began that job, and as you know, this year, I believe it was, they opened that building. And so the campuses have all grown tremendously. But you know, I think I'd have to tell you that one of the greatest things that stands out in my mind is how we worked with the people in the communities. Maysville, as the center city here, could not have been greater. The mayor, the commissioners, everybody, it was just unreal, the support that we had, this college had from the community. And the same thing was true in Mount Sterling. The same thing was true in Cynthiana. And I'm sure these folks can agree with that this is one of the greatest places on earth to try to get people to come together for a common cause. And then I don't ever want to forget the number of students. We had record enrollment when I was president, and it's students. It's all about students. You know, if you can make students happy, and if you can award degrees, and you can find jobs for them. And in all my tenure, I never had a dollar added back to the budget. The people in Frankfurt took money from us every single year, and yet we still managed to survive with grants and all kinds of things. And the people here are committed. They are committed to the students. They're committed to their jobs. And so it was just a great place. I can never say enough positive things about the faculty, the staff, the students, and the people in the communities.
Dr. Basic, you've got a shorter statement, but
yeah. Well, I would say there are two things that stand out to me. The first is after Dr. Story left, he left behind that last building project for us to finish. And so I walked in January, and Kara Clark came and sat down in front of me and said, we have to raise $7 million this year, let's go. And not only was it really $7 million, but because we used some of our carry forward money to do some planning, we had to raise even more than that. And so I feel very fortunate that we had a lot of support in all of our communities, but we were able to come up with, in a year, in fact, we did in about 10.5 months, we came up with more than $7 million. So we met that goal. As you know, that Build Smart project required 25% investment from the communities, and then the other 75% would be paid back by student fees over the years through bonds that were floated. I would say the other thing that is of note in the last 4 years is we really had to pivot quite a lot. The foundation that was laid was so very solid, but it's only solid when the ground underneath you doesn't shift. But the problem is the ground has shifted in the last 5 to 7 years. And the record enrollments we had, which particularly took place right after the recession kicked in, all those numbers of students, that fell off dramatically. And then we were fighting even more so for students than maybe we ever had before. And so we really had to change our focus in terms of how are we recruiting students. We didn't really have goals set. I think folks that are here now would tell you, we really had to stop and look and say, how do we know how many students we need to have every year? How are we going to plan our budget unless we really know? And so I think we've done a much better job of reorganizing. Enrollment is now, it used to be student services or student activities, and now it's really enrollment and student services, because that's got to come first before we can even take care of the rest of it. And I think we've done a really nice job with reorganizing that piece of it. It's been difficult. We've seen a lot of people that have retired and some that are here now that have gone on. And so we're trying to, you can never replace that experience, but what you've got to do is try to find the right people to help plug in and keep moving forward where you're going in your goals.
That sounds like an accomplishment and a challenge.
It is, it is.
I'm going to move around to Dr. Story and say something, tell us something about a challenge.
You always have ups and downs. The major problem with me, I think, in my mind, was that I was not able to reward faculty and staff for what they were doing properly. And every year, and I'm sure the other presidents would say the same thing, I always felt like that the people were giving much more than we were giving them. And that we were expecting a lot, and they were getting very little. When I was president, I had people that were not making $20,000 a year. Well, you know, that's inhumane. And that bothered me all the time. And our faculty were not paid properly. They should have been paid more. And I always felt like some of the other colleges were getting more money from the system than we were to do these sorts of things. I think, John, that's the thing that worried me most, because I couldn't change it, because there was no way to bring in enough money to help people.
Dr. Julian, you didn't get that money, did you?
Bluegrass did not get that money.
What about a challenge you had here?
No, and I even got Harrison Bourbon County for Maysville, just remember that.
Okay.
So a challenge, well, so the consolidation was both a celebration and a challenge, of course. As I said, you know, bringing together two fine institutions, but with very different cultures and very different histories. And I remember thinking at one point, you know, I have these, even at the dean's level, of course, across the college, we had great faculty, we had great staff, thinking like, I've got great people, what am I going to, how am I going to sort this out? This is just awful. This is a terrible thing to have to do. And somehow everybody found their place, which was just a really cool way of it happening. Russ went back into the classroom, Jerry went back to being counselor, but somehow they made those decisions, and we ended up both with great faculty and staff from people who had great experience in the college, as well as great leadership. And so that was a great outcome of a challenge of having lots and lots of good people and trying to sort out where they all needed to go. Now, so the consolidation was kind of a long challenge of several years, and probably still to this day, some of that remains in terms of just some ways of thinking about who we are, who you are. But the more immediate one was the second of the four-letter words, and that was mold. And I will just tell it really quickly, but I had been here about 5 weeks. It was 9/11. And we had been in a meeting that morning. The nurses had come and said, we have mold in our area. We've had mold in our area a long time. We think that something should be done about it. And I was like, oh, okay, I think something should be done about it too. Let's see what we can do. And so we had come out of that meeting, and someone came down the hall and said, turn on all the televisions, something terrible's happened. So that will be forever. I mean, where you were on 9/11, I know exactly where I was. I was in that room down the hall talking about mold. So within about a week, we had moved the entire nursing program down, I don't even know where, somewhere else. And my second semester here, I spent in a trailer on the front lawn, because part of the area that had mold in it was the offices, the administrative offices here in the front. And so a number of us spent that semester in trailers out on the front lawn. Some of you who are around then will remember that. And it was okay, you know, we made it work. But that probably freaked me out and concerned me. We had students who had began to complain. We had a number of faculty who had respiratory and other issues. And the more I learned about mold, it is not something to be messed with. You do not want that anywhere around you. And we had actually, the analysis showed that we had some of the kind that actually could cause some serious issues. So that's what happened. And you know, it's amazing that we all came together, the community came around us, the system came around us, the employees all came together, and we made it through that. But that was probably, you know, the most frightening thing that I ever experienced related to, you know, just to kind of something immediately that had to be dealt with.
Dr. Shires, one more challenge, and then we'll get something more upbeat. Do you have a challenge during your...
Mine's pretty simple. The greatest challenge we had when I came and when I left was funding. And it was, as Ed has inferred, the problem was with the legislature. For many years, they cut funding to higher education. Folks would like to say, well, you didn't get all the money you should have from UK. Yes, we got all that they could give us because they weren't getting the money either. But the community colleges were treated very unfairly in the legislature by the politicians in terms of, not that they just gave us the same money to live on every year. They cut. I don't remember the percentages, but that influenced everything we did. And we had years, as Ed has also mentioned, we had years when there were no raises for anybody. I don't remember how many. It seems to me in my mind, maybe 5 years we got no raises. Staff, faculty, me, anybody else.
Well, I remember, Dr. Shires.
I bet you did.
I remember
Some people here could probably tell this.
Yeah.
Dr. Shires, wasn't it during your tenure that they had to restructure this corner back here and pour tons and tons of concrete and take the walls on the outside off?
Yeah, this corner and the corner of the library.
Right.
And the big room we always call the music room.
Yeah.
At the other end of the
They
hall.
just...
We pumped, I didn't,
Yeah.
they pumped concrete underneath. There was, you know, there was a process by which they could pump this stuff to raise the floor back up.
If you take a close look, this outside wall as you walk out this door has a different color brick than the rest of the place because they had to take down the whole walls.
Exactly.
Cleaned out my office twice, when they moved me for mold and when they moved me to fix the building. So,
And in that process, we did discover one interesting thing. The part of the building where the library was built was originally a pond. And when we got into that to fix it, we learned it was a beautiful blue clay in the pond. But for some reason, that made it much an archaeological friend. Dr. Miller is shaking his head like he knows, you know, well, we had to mitigate that business of that part of the building being on a pond. We had to dig the pond out. Well, that was a big challenge.
It was.
Yes.
Dr. Story, what about some relationships between the college community that were either a challenge, opportunity, accomplishment, or combination of those things? Connection to the community.
Well, I think about how the city came together with us when we built the College Cafe downtown and also introduced that program, the Culinary Arts program. And, you know, we had meetings, several of them, with all of the city folks and with us. And, you know, we were renovating the big old building downtown. And then we had a fire in the building downtown as it comes along. And I remember quite well Senator McConnell coming and going with us through the building after it was finished. And the city managed to get a grant that helped renovate. And it's just like I said a little while ago, it's the easiest place on earth to work because everybody falls in line with common goal, if it's a decent goal, of course. And it helps everybody. And we were so proud when that was finished and the classes were downtown. And the same thing was true in Mount Sterling, the very same thing. We started with a building that was a sewing factory. And we managed to get donations and what have you to renovate the building there, the downstairs of the building. And then eventually we went upstairs. And so we had grand openings there twice. I think once with Dr. Basic because I was already gone when they finished and had the open house for the upstairs of the Mount Sterling building. But that was mainly because of people in the community. The community wanted it. The Chamber of Commerce in all the cities wanted things to happen. Moorhead, every place, the same thing. It's for the good of the community. It makes the community look good. When people come in, even for the community, they want to know what kind of education is available, what kind of opportunities are available for the employees and what have you. So it was unbelievable to me, because I'm a classroom teacher by trade, and when you're a classroom teacher, you don't necessarily have to be involved with all these kinds of things. But then I changed positions a couple of times, and the first thing I knew, I was being asked to be a president. But I had excellent mentorship because Dr. Julian and I seemed to work pretty well. And she taught me things daily about how to carry on. And so all these things, John, just make for very interesting and rewarding experiences. And Cynthiana is the same. It's just different people, but the same mission always, the betterment for the students in the area. And that's what we were all about. We were about that, and we wanted the community to reap benefits also.
Dr. Julian, can you think about a relationship you had in the community? I don't know how I phrased that question, something like, discuss a relationship between the college and community that was either a challenge or opportunity, or some combination of those. That sounds like a press conference kind of question.
No.
Ask a paragraph and the politician saying, what did you just ask?
You know, I would echo Ed's words about the special nature of the communities that Maysville serves. You know, probably my closest working relationships were with Mayor and Judge Gollenstein. You know, I turned to them because I was not from the community. And there were other college leaders, I mean, and community leaders, certainly Mike Denham I would include in that as well, and a few others that knew this community so well and knew this college and had been a part of the planning and development and support over so many years. And so I really turned to them often to try to see what we needed to do and be. You know, we also had long-serving faculty and staff who also were members of the community, and I mean, I was excited every day to come and work with these folks and to be in this community. I didn't see Charlie Calvert come in, who of course I would also include in that group, and board chair, and just so supportive, and so, you know, those, I guess, more traditional leaders in the community were the ones that just were constantly alongside us, doing whatever we needed done and supporting us. And I suspect that's still true.
Dr. Shires, what about community college connection that stands out in your mind?
Well, when I first came, and I'll put a little extra information, I was 35 years old when I came as the CEO for Maysville Community College, but we only had like 15 faculty and had about 200 students. So it wasn't a great burden on my shoulders, but I was 35 years old, but I had considerable experience even up to that time in higher education, and had worked for the U.S. Office of Education, help providing grants and loans to colleges and universities to build academic buildings in 7 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. Believe it or not, I turned down a job to College of the Virgin Islands to come to Maysville. I had worked closely with colleges and universities in Kentucky, and had worked a lot with the University of Kentucky, and through the University of Kentucky learned about the community college system, which was just beginning. First colleges were set up because the university had some branch campuses in some towns. But there were 3 that were going to be new. Jefferson Community College in Louisville, Hazard Community College in Hazard, and Maysville Community College. I got ready to leave the federal government, and I and I had some other offers, but I talked with the folks at the University of Kentucky, and Dr. Singletary at that time said, Shires, we'd like to have you join us at one of our building community colleges. Now, we have 3 that we're looking for somebody to be there to be the main person. Jefferson, Hazard, and Maysville. I want you to go around, if you're interested, I want you to go around and visit each of those communities, talk to the people in the community, talk to the faculty, talk to the, which I did. And after visiting all 3, Maysville was at the top of my list because of some of the things that these folks have said. I saw early on the support of the community, but also even those 15 faculty, they were strong faculty members. So we had faculty, we had good staff. Charles Weddington, who had been here, had gotten things organized and in place. As I mentioned earlier, we didn't have all the money that we would like to have had, but anyway, we had from the very beginning of my visit here and then deciding to come here, I could see the support that this college, as small as it was, had. The community had raised a lot of money. They bought the land. They provided subsidizing the program. The nursing program wouldn't have come here until a person in the community put up a certain amount of money to say, well, here's this thousands of dollars. We want the nursing program. So they did things like that, and they helped us, faculty and staff, in other ways. So early on, that's why I came here, because I could see the support, as they have mentioned, from the community. And upon my visits with some of the folks, and I told John earlier, I'd just like to, as a somewhat historian like he is, I'm not a professional historian, but it's been one of my avocations, and I thought that perhaps we should look at the history of how this place really got started. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but there are names that I want folks to know about. Some of you do know about them, of the people who got this college here in the first place and got it going and kept us going through many years. And I'll just mention some of those, and I put them in families because it wasn't just the man of the house or the lady of the house. The whole families did this stuff and got this place going. Families like the Calverts. Jean and Junie, and Jean was sort of my mentor for Maysville and Maysville Community College. She was a great person, a great woman, and was considered that throughout the community college system and the University of Kentucky, and received some plaudits because of that. But the Calvert family, and we still have the Calvert family with us, with Charles. God bless you, brother. The Clark family, Mr. John Clark and all of his family, they were another strong family. And they're still with us today, and with Kara. And she's a secondary Clark, but she's part of it. Of course, the Denham family. We would not have had this college if it hadn't been, in the very first place, politically, Dr. Mitchell Denham, Dr. Harry Denham. I won't go into all the details, but they did the work in Frankfort to get this college here. And they have continued forever. And we do have the honor of the fact that State Representative Mike Denham was in our first graduating class. Was there anything you'd like to say about that?
We had a lot of fun.
But the Clark family, the Denham family, of course, and the Browning family, others, I may forget some, but there are a couple of folks from surrounding counties. We had support not just from Maysville and Mason County. Bill Wallen, who was mayor of Brooksville, he was a strong supporter and on our board. Bill Bertram from Lewis County, same kind of thing. Marvin Suit from Fleming County. Harold Orm from Robertson. Almost rode with him. I rode with him here once to one of our board meetings, and on the way home, we both lived out toward Sardis. You may know where that is. And Mr. Orm was getting along in years, and it was pretty late when we were, and he got excited about something, and we almost went over a cliff. But I said, "It's okay, Mr. Orm, it's all right." So from the surrounding counties, and we had, with the Cynthiana branch that got established, Bruce Florence. Faculty and others will remember Bruce. If it hadn't been for Bruce, there wouldn't have been that kind of place that has flourished and is a real strong branch of campus of Maysville Community Technical College. So there were these kind of people, and again, from the very beginning, I could see this and feel this. And as pointed out, I stayed 25 years, and folks still say, "Shires, why did you stay at one college 25 years?" Well, for the very same reason that I came here in the first place. The kind of support that the place had. In my tenure, I was pleased to be a part of the University of Kentucky, and our college was too. If it hadn't been for the University of Kentucky, there wouldn't have been a community college system either. So anyway,
Thanks for that. And if you all have any questions about any of those people, Daryl knows all the stories, and Mike Denham was in that first class and knows Dr. Withington and some of those families, and I've had some familiarity with some of them too. Dr. Shires brought up what his impressions were of Maysville. That was a question I had for Dr. Julian and Dr. Basic. And my first draft of the question said, "Now be honest," but I cut that out in the second draft. It didn't sound real good. But what were, you didn't know this area, Dr. Julian, I'll start with you. What did you think when you got here?
Well, so I came for the interview, and actually we stayed in Augusta at it was at that moment a kind of a new bed and breakfast. Right. And I having been for a long time named Augusta, I thought, this is very interesting that the place I'm staying, where I'm going to this college to be interviewed for, is in Augusta. And quick story, I was in a group one time, and I was a lot of things going on, and I heard someone from across the way go like, "Where's Augusta?" And I went, "I'm over here." And they went like, "What?" I had to get used to that. And so we drove into Maysville. I mean, what a beautiful small town on the river. And I mean, so the first impression was just, environment and then as I began to learn more about the families that Dr. Shires was talking about, and the commitment and what had been done to bring this college here, I mean, it was very clear from early on that what we've all been saying, and that this community really embraced the college and embraced the opportunities that it brought to this community. I've heard Mike Denham talk about it many times. And then I got to go to Rowan and, met some folks from the Moorhead community. It wasn't, as close a connection necessarily, but just as invested in the kind of training that institution had been founded for. And then as I learned more about Cynthiana and about, what Bruce had done, basically starting a college out of the back of her car, it was, I mean, kind of what Dr. Shires said. It was clearly the kind of place where the commitment and the energy and the support, not only from the community, but within the college was there. And so I just thought it was a perfect spot for me to land. And I was excited about it.
What about kind of the geography and the place itself?
Well, I had some choice too before I came, because I was in a place, many of you know this, I was in Kansas, and really wasn't a great cultural fit for us. We wanted to get back to the South in a place that felt more like home for us. And so we actually had about three places that I've been contacted by some search groups that were looking for presidents. And I was talking with them, and after listening to them, this sounded like, not having seen it yet, but the place would probably be the best fit for me. And so I remember coming for the interview, and I flew into Cincinnati, and I met Billy Barber first. I'm glad she stepped out. The only instructions I had to find her was I needed to be looking for Jennifer Aniston. Someone who looked like Jennifer Aniston. That's what she said. So I come up the escalator, and she's waiting there for me, and I figured out obviously that was who it was. And I mean, from the minute she started, I didn't get a word in. She was just talking to me the whole time, telling me about my family because she'd gone on Facebook and stalked us, and knew about Candace, and knew about Walter, and knew about Michael, and asked me how they were doing. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And in fact, as we were driving back, we missed all of the restaurants. By the time she thought to ask me if I was hungry and wanted something to eat, we were already about 3/4 of the way here. So we skipped all the restaurants until we got to town. And that in and of itself was a little bit weird, but once I got to meet the people, that was what sold me. It wasn't the town. I love the town. It's great. I love our communities. I love all, you know, I love Cynthia, and I love Moorhead, I love Mount Sterling, I love Paris. I love all of them, but I love the people. That's what really sold me. It wasn't the geography of it. That's what it was. Again, I will tell you the other thing that I remember distinctly about my interview. That the second day of interviews was driving around to all of our campuses. We have 4 campuses. And we started here in Maysville and went then to Rowan, which at the time is our old campus, and we've now moved to the new campus. Then we went to what was Mount Sterling at that time. We only had 1 floor. We were still working on floor number 2. And then we went all the way to Cynthia, and as you know, that's a pretty big loop to make. By the time we got that last one, I was a little bit tired, and the only thing I remember that they said, when you get there, you know, you'll want to talk with Bruce. Now, if no one tells you, what do you think about that? You know what you think. So I got there, and I walked in, and somebody said, hi, and they said, this is Miss Florence. I assumed Florence was her first name. I was meeting Miss Florence. She takes me around the whole building. We talked for probably 15, 20 minutes, lovely time. I'm leaving, and I walked out, and Jessica Kern drove me around, and I said, now where was Bruce? Because I never met him. True story. But I went back, on that second day, I went back to the hotel. I got on the treadmill, and I was walking on the treadmill at the Hampton Inn, and Mike McCall called me and said, would you like to be the president of Maysville? And I was his last hire before he retired. And so I kind of think that's sort of one of those, I like to hold that in my column too. But he was very gracious, and I said yes, and I have not had a moment's doubt about it since I got here. So.
Dr. Story, you had the opposite experience. You weren't new to the area, you've been in the area. Any special challenges that brought for you, or? Because you know,
I think that probably, yes, there were challenges. I was selected to become the president, and if you've been at a particular place for a number of years, you have people that feel one way or feel the other way, and so I set out immediately to try to draw everybody in so we could become a family. Not a divided family, but a together family, so that even those who were not sure they made the right selection, that they could have a part in the discussion of where we were going and how we were going. So, and I tried to think all the time that I wanted to be very open, everything. I wanted to know everything as much as possible, and help them make a decision about where we are to go from here. And so I will admit, and Dr. McCall told me many times that my administrative council was too large, but I didn't think so, and so I never did change. And so it worked for me. It probably might not work for other people, but I knew all of these people very well. They were established faculty, and this institution has the reputation of people coming and staying for a lifetime. Dr. Shires, yes, as you well know. And so that probably, John, is the extent of all I did was move offices. And so it wasn't a great aha moment where I was going to go and meet a whole lot of new people. It was just, I was moving up to Dr. Julian's old green chair.
You hated my chair.
I did.
I knew those chairs wouldn't last a day because I knew Dr. Story hated those chairs.
And so we arranged for a different chair and put something else on the wall. And that was the only differences that occurred, because I'm here to tell you that I worked with Dr. Shires and I worked with Dr. Julian, and I couldn't have worked with two finer people, and both of them taught me many things. And even though I wasn't an administrator very much under Dr. Shires, I was in many of his meetings and I watched him. You know, he was being watched. And if I thought it was valuable, I was keeping it. And if I didn't, I was discarding it.
But he never told me.
No, I didn't tell him that. Well, we didn't meet much, if you remember. He hired me. I was surprised that he'd say one of the most important things he did was to hire me, but he didn't even mention me. There you go.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna change that on my notes.
You were cut short.
That's it. Yeah, you were next on the list.
We kind of advertised this as 45 minutes, and in about 10 minutes, I'm going to go across the hall here and collect anecdotes. So if any of you
I have two props that I brought and I need to say.
Well, I wanted to ask you if you had any final comments.
So I just took over, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So this is something that the machine and construction folks from Rowan did for me when I left. And it says, if I can read it, "You are always welcome at MCTC." So this has sat on my shelf at Bluegrass for the last 11 years. And so I wanted to bring it back and say, you know, you never know what's going to be meaningful or, you know, kind of the thing that you're going to hang on to. Not that there weren't thousands of really wonderful things said and done for me while I was here, but this was just a representation of one of those things. So it's the key to Maysville cases.
All right.
And then the other one, some of you may or may not remember the Supreme Commander story. I have used it a lot over the years, and I'll tell it to anybody who wants to know. But Kim Devon, who was not Devon at that time, did this for me, and this hung actually in the office in here for quite a long time, and this has also sat on my shelf in my office at Bluegrass. And at one point she came by, and I was not in the office, so she wrote me a little note that said, "Hello, Supreme Commander, have a great day, Kim Devon." So this is another one of my prize mementos for my time. So I wanted you to see those two things.
Thank you for that. And if anybody else have any final comments?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Shires.
I would just like to say that I'm sure that the people I talked about, the folks who got this place going in the first place, and through the 25 years I was here, and the folks who were here then, I'm sure all of us would be proud of what is here today. The way the place has grown, the quality of the facilities, the quality of the faculty and staff, as some have already mentioned, but I'm sure that all these old folks, including this old folk, would, and I am very proud of this college and the way it has developed, and just keep up the good work, Dr. Vassy.
Thank you, Dr. Shires.
You bet.
Dr. Story?
Well, while I was here, and Dr. Julian and I share much because I learned all about her, she learned all about me. We didn't know each other. In fact, I was standing out in the hall, I'll tell you the anecdote. I was standing out in the hall the first day, and I said, "Well, she showed."
I used to tell people that, you know, after everything that had happened here before I got here, after Dr. Shires and before me, people would, when I came in the morning, they would go, "Oh, look, she came back."
And so, you know, it's just been a great trip for me. Teaching here, I was doing exactly what I wanted to do under Dr. Shires because I was young and I wanted to do all those kinds of crazy things. And Jeff said something to me a while ago about while I was in the classroom, you know, and I think of all the students, not only here, but all over the South and every place from New Orleans up to here. I just can't even imagine how many students there would be, but they were most important to me because it didn't matter in what respect. I tried to make them so that they would be able to go forward and do things at the next level, whatever it be. And yes, I was, some people thought I was too hard, but you know, you've got to have expectations, and if you have high expectations, students will try to meet it. They'll try to come up to you, and that's what I did. And then when I took on these administrative roles, I just wanted everybody involved. I wanted us to go forward because I love the institution, and I was here at the break of day, every day, and many times late at night. And so I gave everything I had when I was president, and even before, to the students and to the faculty and to the staff because I cared about them. And I still care about them. That's the only thing that I miss, and that's the only thing that I regret, is not having all of you with me, or at least where I could see you once in a while, so we could say something. But you know, things change, and you have to, and life changes, and we all have to get used to that, as Dr. Shires said, and this institution is a great institution. I think that it'll always be a great institution, and it should always be important to this community and to the other communities in which we serve.
Thank you, Dr. Story. Dr. Basic?
Well, you've heard from three people who have given so much of their lives to this place, and you know that I've now served in 4 institutions of higher education. And I will tell you that each place, and I'm sure these three will say the same thing, you invest something of yourself, and even when you go away, it stays behind. And so I owe a great debt to these three, as do we all. All the others who have gone before us, the faculty and the staff and the students, because everyone leaves a bit of themselves here. And I think that's what's made us what we are and why we've been so successful and why I think we'll continue to be successful. From when Dr. Shires talked about it, you know, serving 5, 6 counties now, about 19 in Kentucky and Ohio. And really, even a few years ago, one of our campuses had 84 counties in Kentucky represented. So the reach becomes that much larger, and I think you'll continue to see more and more of that regionalism because that's the future. You know, that's how we're going to meet the needs of our students, our communities. And we talk now, our new sort of tagline for KCTCS is Better Lives for a Better Kentucky. And I really believe that. I believe that's what we're supposed to be about. And I can't tell you how do we boil that down, but it's about making lives better for others. And so I think these three are part of that. I like to hope maybe I can make a contribution as well. And all of you that have been involved, thank you too.
We really enjoyed your all's comments and conversation. I'm sorry I was so familiar. All these people have evaluated me, so I called them by the first name. So there's a little gift.
While you're doing that, John, I had a memory came back to me when Dr. Story was talking about meetings, and one of my fondest memories here was at one of my meetings of the faculty. When I got through, this guy came up and said, Dr. Shires, he said, if you weren't a college president, you ought to be a stand-up comic. I said, God bless you.
I know some of you would like to talk to the presidents individually. Some of you, came in, so I think they'll stay around a while and talk to you. And once again, thanks again.
You bet.